How do you help your child overcome early rising? This is a huge question. I get so many parents needing help with a little one that is early rising. I mean, by early rising, I'm talking about waking up for the day before 6 in the morning. In our culture, 6 has got to be the earliest. So it's so common, it really is a massive problem. And I also see a huge increase in the number of early rising cases in the summer months. So as we hit, here in the UK, we hit the lightest months of the year, you know, particularly in June and July, where the evenings are light, the mornings are light. It becomes a bigger problem because even those who don't really have or haven't had an early rising problem before suddenly seem to have one. And it's not just because the daylight might be creeping in. If it is, black the room out because that daylight is your enemy. But even if you have everything blacked out and it's not creeping in, just the fact that their bodies are exposed to longer daylight hours and getting more of that is going to just shift those circadian rhythms around a bit, and it can in itself cause a bit of early rising to creep in. So what can you do about it? Well, I'm going to give you 5 steps, 5 tips to help with early rising. So the first one is to just set a precedent that 6 a.m. is the earliest that you can start your day. No earlier. If it has a 5 in it, it's still nighttime. And I know in the summer in many parts of the world, you know, you get 5:30, 5:45, and it's broad daylight, the sky is blue, the sun is shining, and you think, well, why wouldn't you want to be up for the day? But if it's pre 6 a.m, it's still nighttime, so you need to set that kind of rule and not let your child start the day any earlier. Because if you do, and if you're like, yeah, my child wakes up at 5 every day, I've been there, I know what that feels like, and you're up, and you've got Peppa Pig on or whatever on the telly, and you're trying to doze whilst your toddler's sort of watching it and around, and it's not a great way to start the day. It just messes the whole day up. You're going to be overtired, the child's going to be overtired. It's just not something that works on the long term. So if they are waking at 5, at 4, at 5:30, whatever, if they're early rising, don't actually get up and start the day, because you're just going to further set that into their body clock, into their rhythm, that's when they get up. You know what that's like. You know, if you've worked in a job where you know most people who will wake up at a certain time every day because that's routine, they have to take the kids to school or get to work or whatever they do, and that's when they wake up. So come the weekend, they're waking up then anyway. You know, maybe prior to even having children, you were just kind of rigged to wake at a certain time, and even when you didn't have to be up for work, you still woke at that time. It's because it becomes habitual and it becomes how your body clock is set. So don't set that in by letting them get up early. Even if you know your child isn't going to go back to sleep, still see through the night response, which will come to you, but still see through what you're doing and keep them in their sleep space until at least 6 a.m. So what should that response be? Well, however you're responding, and that is like a whole nother episode, but whatever your response is, however you're responding to your child's wakings, which maybe you don't get any in the night, it's just this early morning one. Maybe you get several in the night and the early morning one, but have a response. So let's just say, for example, you don't have any other wakings in the night, it's just this one. Decide how you're going to respond to that waking. Are you going to go and just, for example, your child's in their own room, maybe in a cot, and you're going to go through to their room, whisper or tell them to lie back down, or give them a little reassurance. So you're then going to sit with them for a while, intermittently giving them a bit of reassurance, or are you going to go reassure them and then go back to bed, wait 10 minutes, come back, reassure them, and go back to bed? What does your response look like? And there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that. It's different for everybody, different people, different scenarios, different child temperaments. There are so many factors that would arrive me at a different answer for you. So, but once you've figured out what that response is going to be, do that response until 6. Some of you might think, what? I've got to sit in their room from 4 a.m. till 6. How am I going to do that? And it's a time when you are most groggy, you know, we want to finish our sleep. It's not the best time. It's the time when most parents just go, oh, come in my bed. And they just give in. If bringing your child into your bed is something you're happy with, it works, and you all get some sleep and it's safe, if it's not a problem, then I'm not telling you it's a problem either. It's fine if it is fine, if it works for you. But if it doesn't, if you do it just because you don't know what else to do, and then you're lying there trying to sleep while you've got a fidgeting toddler who doesn't get any more sleep anyway, then it's not really serving any of you, and you're just kind of masking it and doing your best to ignore it until time to get up. So instead, decide that you're going to draw a line in the sand, make a change, and hit it head on. And then go for it, just go for it. It will be tough for a few mornings. It will mean that you're tired for a few days. So pick a time when you can handle that, but push through that pain barrier, and it will be better on the other side. So respond however you're responding, however that's planned, respond that way right through until 6, keep going. And then at 6, you can start the day. But if your response is something that means you're staying in that room with them, don't just go, okay, it's 6 now, let's get up. We don't want to give the impression to your child or baby that you're going to sit there and try and reassure them and then just get them up anyway, because they're just going to hold out for that. They're going to be waiting for that because they know that's what happens. So just to break that cycle, to come out of that, if it gets to beyond 6 and you decide, I need to get my child up now, but I'm stuck here, just step out of the room, close the door behind you, give it 60 seconds. Yes, they might cry, but it's just 60 seconds, and then go back in, and instead of being in your very calm nighttime persona, you're going to go back in daytime mode, happy and animated and full of energy, which might be very hard if you've been up half the night. But change your persona, change the atmosphere. That might mean lights go on or curtains are opened, and really signal that it's morning time now, and that's why you can get up. We don't want your child thinking they can just get up any old time. So it's a bit of a facade, but it works because it's cueing them, it's showing them signals that it's morning time and now you can get up. And we call it dramatic wake up. It's a good tool to use. So your first step is around this whole setting a point of when it's okay to get up, what your response is going to be up until then, and how you actually start the day if you're stuck in between that. Step 2, identify where the overtiredness is coming from, because if you've got an early riser, I'm betting there's likely to be some overtiredness in there somewhere. Where could it be coming from? Is it coming from just the fact that they are waking so early? So it's a vicious cycle. They wake too early for the day just doesn't work between, they're waking, I don't know, let's say they're waking at 5, no matter what you do nap wise, they're not catching up, then they go back, they go to bed, they're overtired, and it just keeps going. Is that where the overtiredness is coming from? Or is your child not getting a suitable amount of sleep for their age and their developmental stage? Have you restricted the nap? Have you cut the naps down too soon? So again, I've got tons of resources I can share with you how much sleep they need at what age, but just get that knowledge, know how much sleep your child should be having for their age, what the average is. It's not precise, but what the average is, roughly ballpark for their age, and how that ought to be spaced out as well, because it also matters when they get the sleep, not just how much. For example, if your child is of an age where about 3 hours of sleep a day is right for them, and that's true of most 7-8 month olds. So let's say they should be having about 3 hours sleep a day, and they start the day ridiculously early, and then they go down for a sleep, and then they take 2 hours of it, and then they take another bit later, and you're thinking, yeah, they're getting it, but that's leaving a very big gap between their last wake up and bedtime. there could still be overtiredness creeping in just because of that long wakeful stretch. So it's not just about how much sleep they're getting, it's also about when they get it, how it's spaced out, to avoid overtiredness setting in. So is it to do with the naps? Are they going to bed too late? Or is it purely just because of these early wakings that they just keep happening and you're stuck in the cycle now? Even so, there probably was some overtiredness at some point which began this whole thing. So see if you can find where that is and address that, because overtiredness is the biggest cause of early rising. So there's probably some happening somewhere. So step 3, or tip number 3 for you, if your little one is sort of 19 to 20 months or older, then they're going to be old enough to comprehend a day and night clock, or a sleep and wake clock. I've talked about these before, and I massively recommend the ones that are very clear, that have a picture of a little character awake and a picture of a little character tucked up in bed. It's a visual picture and they can see exactly what they're supposed to do. So they don't need to understand the shapes or the colours and of what yellow means day or blue means night, or, you know, we don't want to add a complexity layer of understanding in there. If you want your child to understand this from a young age, keep it very simple. Look, there's your little rabbit and he's tucked up in his bed, so that's night time. Oh, and now look, little rabbit is up for the day and the sun is shining, that means it's daytime. It's so clear. They can understand this from a young age. So one of those clocks is, they're brilliant. They work a treat at helping and a signal and showing them, because sometimes your child just doesn't know that they're supposed to be asleep or up. So they're great. Don't set any alarms on them. So make sure you put it on the setting where it literally just changes the light behind it. And they are a useful tool. They are not a solution on their own, and don't think, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this clock and then that's it, the early rising will disappear. It's not as simple as that. It's a behavioural problem, so a clock isn't going to fix that, but it will help. So they're a great idea. The number one rule with those though is, if you bring one in, stick to it. If you make a rule that when that clock changes at 6 or 7 a.m, that's when we get up, you do not get your child up before that. Because if you do, even once, they're never going to take it seriously again. So it has to be stuck to, otherwise it's pointless. Number 4, tip number 4 for you is that, and I like just like I just said with the clock there, that there are no one-offs. There can't be any one-offs. There can't be any, yeah, well, we did this all week and then at the weekend, oh, I just needed some sleep, so Daddy took them downstairs and they just snuggled on the sofa. It was just a one-off. I've heard that before. I have heard that before. So no one-offs. You can't have one-offs. It has to be consistent. Whatever you're doing has to be consistent. I say that over and over again, but it really is the key. So make sure your response is consistent. The rules you're putting in place, you stick to them consistently. No one-offs at all. You don't get up till at least 6. You respond with that consistent response every single morning, and you're going to get there quicker. You really are going to get there so much quicker. So be consistent. And my 5th step for you today is really something to question, really. If you're kind of like, yeah, well, are they getting enough sleep? Yeah, they're waking happily. They might be waking at 5 or 4, but they're waking happily. They seem to be done. They're coping well. Everything seems fine. So if you have an early riser but actually everything seems fine, then it's something else, and it's really probably a case of shifting the pattern. So if you think, yeah, they're getting the quota of sleep for their age and developmental stage, they are waking happily in the morning, because waking grumpy is a certain sign that they're not done sleeping. But if you think, no, waking happily, no signs of needing to go back to sleep, coping well throughout the day, taking the naps, whatever, however they are at that stage, and you're like, yeah, everything's in check, just waking desperately early. In that case, I would look at potentially needing to shift bedtime actually a bit later, which is something I rarely advise, But if it's a unique situation, it might be necessary. It might be that they are just going to bed way too early and that's why you're getting the early rising. Or it could be that you need to reduce or shift the nap structure around slightly, because it may be that they're taking too much at the wrong time and it's impacting on the morning, and that they're ready to start the day too soon. So this 5th step really is in the minority cases, and it's almost like if everything else has been checked off and you're 100% certain that there's no overtiredness, they're getting enough sleep, they're waking happily, basically everything is great. It's just that it's early, but otherwise everything else is just going so smoothly. You haven't any other problems. If you're seeing lots of night wakings, then you're not in this category, because that tells me that there are other problems with the sleep, and there probably is overtiredness. But what I'm saying is, if everything goes smoothly, they nap well, they go to bed nicely, they sleep soundly all night long, but they just wake early, and this is a rare few cases, then it's actually what we call a sleep phase shift that's needed. It just needs to be moved slightly, and be careful with that. But I wanted to bring that one up because there will be people that watch this and go, yeah, tick, check, 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 all of that's in place, my child still wakes early. And in that case, it's a phase that we need to shift, and we need to just move when they take their sleep. So just to recap for you, just make sure that they're not starting the day before 6 in the morning, that you are identifying and at least looking and working out where overtiredness could be coming in, and to do that, make sure you get yourself that information on how much sleep they should be having and when. I can give you all of that. Introduce a clock, a sleep-wake clock, if your child is sort of 19 to 20 months or above, because they usually really like them and it's a handy aid to what you're doing. No one-offs, never ever have any one-offs. It's got to be consistent. Once your child's sleeping really, really well, you can get away with an occasional one-off event that happens or something, because life is for living and you're gonna do things and you're gonna attend that wedding or have that party or whatever it is. So there will be later, but just while you're working on the sleep, no one-offs. Be consistent, always be consistent. And if everything is perfect, but you've just got a happy early waker, then we need to shift the sleep phase. So there you go, early rising covered for you in 5 steps or 5 tips, and I really hope that helps.